quick story. I don't know if it's appropriate, but about a person in Texas, Jim, who announces at the group, by the grace of God and the fellowship of the program, I haven't found it necessary to take a drink for 20 years. And then Sally pipes up table over and goes, I thought you drank a couple weeks ago. He goes, yes, but that wasn't necessary.
Oh, I heard it through the grapevine. Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Hey, Don. Hey, everybody. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
What do you say, Sam?
What's up, Mr. Don? It's kind of not Palm Springsy here today. It's gray.
Yeah, you've got a catastrophe looming. Hurricane, right?
Yeah.
Coming your way?
Yeah. Of course, everybody's listening to this way past that, so they know how it turned out. But right now, I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, either your life is destroyed or it just passed over. I mean,
exactly.
It could be either way. We don't know. I'm upset because I just learned that our galaxy is headed for a direct collision with the Andromeda galaxy, and it is going to be a train wreck.
It is going to be a train wreck, and you're the only person who should be concerned about it because, you and your spiritual gas giant status means you'll probably stick around for it.
Well, these things can be upsetting.
Yes, Don, but that's really that future thinking that gets so many of us in trouble. So I really wouldn't worry about, our galaxy crashing into the Andromeda galaxy because it's probably not going to ruin your day.
You don't need to worry about a little old hurricane. Sam, read the daily quote that we got in email.
From the cradle to the grave, there is always something wrong somewhere, something to rob us of enjoying perfection, something to bother us. When we put one thing right, another will surely go wrong sooner or later. So it behooves us to enjoy every minute we can, for a minute lost is a minute gone forever. Cumbria, June 1975, The Great Art of Living, and the book Emotional Sobriety 2, available on aagrapevine.org. You can sign up to receive these daily quotes in your inbox at aagrapevine.org also.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, it's the truth. I remember the first time I read, every minute I spend on the resentment is a minute that takes me out of the sunlight of the spirit, which is the present moment. What's going on now instead of being in the past, or like the impending collision of galaxies or an approaching hurricane, the future.
Well, think about it. It's self-centeredness, which is a big problem for alcoholics like me, because if I'm thinking about what's happened in the past or what I think might happen in the future, I'm thinking about it all about me. How is this going to affect me, or how did it affect me, and what can I do about it, or me.
One foot in the past, one foot in the future, and
I wonder where that's going.
And
and it's raining cats and dogs all over
the present. Sam, who is our guest today?
Don, today we welcome Mark K. from Casa Grande, Arizona. Mark has an article in the September 2023 issue of The Grapevine. It's Testing the Waters on page 59.
You can look it up on your app.
Check it out.
Everybody do that. We'll be back in a moment.
Hey, Don, how can I support the Grapevine podcast?
Since the Grapevine is self-supporting, we don't sell ad space in our magazines, on our website, or even on our podcast. Grapevine doesn't even accept contributions from AA members.
What?
If you want to support the podcast, visit aagrapevine.org and click on Store.
Hi, my name is Mark, and I'd like to thank Sam and Don for inviting me to this podcast. It's kind of up my wheelhouse. I had a old sponsor that once told me that the only speaker meeting I liked was the one in which I was the speaker. So, well, you're talking about me. So
It's
I
all about
love it.
me. It's all
It's all
about
about me.
me. Well, Mark, when did you get sober?
January 10th, 1989. If you would have told me that day it was my last day of drinking, it would have been a pretty far-fetched idea. But I had hurt myself in a ski accident and I was on painkillers, and they told you not to drink on these. And what they really mean when they tell somebody not to drink, like my wife, she doesn't drink. But what it meant was keep it down under a 6-pack. And so,
Yeah,
you can have a few
I
while you're
like
on
the way you
things.
think.
Well, that doesn't matter. Yeah, that doesn't apply to an alcoholic.
Yeah, I cut it off and I went to this nightclub at happy hour, and I was they told me not to leave. There was a few times at this place where they get a cab, and I used to take it across the street and come back, get my truck, and go out about my merry way. But this night it was kind of dark out, and I decided I needed more cash and pulled up to a 7-Eleven. I made it a drive-through. And
Oh,
yeah, I did what any respectable member of my family would have done. I turned out the lights and left the scene very quickly.
how'd that work out for you?
Yeah, I hid the truck, and I even went back to the 7-Eleven to make sure I did it. And yeah, they were fixing the window, and it took a few days. The state patrol got a hold of me, and they really wanted to talk to me. But something happened. It was 5 days later. He just gave me a careless ticket, and I was coming home, and I didn't drink for that 5 days. And I passed that bar it started at, and I thought I ought to go in. I'm really thirsty. And the autopilot, for the first time, I thought, go home tonight. You can drink tomorrow if you want. Just go home. I think it sounds a little strange, but maybe a voice of intervention. And so the next day I got up, it was 6 days, and I wondered if I could do it a week, and then wondered if I could do it 2 weeks. And it took a month or so, but as I got stronger or weaker, instead of beating them, might as well join them. I met this girl who introduced me to AA, and the rest was history.
So your first month of sobriety was without the
Yes, white
fellowship.
knuckling it. Yes,
Did you drink in that month or you didn't drink in that
I
month?
didn't. I didn't, but I had a realization that everything bad that happened to me happened while I was drinking, and that everything good that happened to me happened while I was drinking, followed by I was always drinking. And then came the realization that alcohol was no longer the solution to my problem. Alcohol was the problem. So I had kind of an immediate epiphany, and I seemed to internalize what it takes everybody a long time to learn, that one drink was too many and 1,000 wasn't enough.
So you knew you were an alcoholic.
Yes, I knew. I didn't know the solution. My younger brother had 9 months more of sobriety, but I didn't know he was going to AA to do it.
You both felt like you needed to conceal that you were going to Alcoholics Anonymous because of some feeling of shame around being an alcoholic or quitting. And was it in your family, or where did you get this idea that it was shameful?
I guess the ultimate shame in being an alcoholic, once you go to AA, the last house on the block, you've essentially admitted it. I guess it's the final nail in the coffin.
It's admitting defeat.
Yes.
And I think maybe the shame for me was I can't hold my liquor, because succeeding as a drinker is a big deal in our society, right?
Well, with all of my drinking buddies. Well, Mark, what was attractive in AA that drew you in?
Well, there was a identification. I thought I was fighting this battle alone. At the time, it was Colorado, and this girl suggested, and she was in another 12-step program. The relationship was fading away, and I thought, well, maybe if I went to a meeting, then that we'd have something in common. And I went over to the central office, and I bought a book, and then they had this club, and I stood at the turning point. The first night I drove up and I couldn't walk in. The second night, drove around the block, and it took a lot of courage, but I got in there, and there were 50 people. It was a closed meeting. It was on the 4th step. I didn't know why they had to spend so much time on that.
Take a personal inventory.
Yeah, I read the steps on the wall, and I knew I wasn't going to do step 5, and I wasn't going to do step 9. And while I was at it, I wasn't going to do any of these other God steps.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord's Prayer, just and then holding hands at the end. I didn't like that, but there were people in there that were fighting the battle I thought I was fighting alone, and it gave me enough to go back to another meeting. Some people come in AA and willing to do anything, but I had willingness grew on me. Pretty soon I developed enough willingness to ask somebody to be my sponsor. After the first Thanksgiving, when I almost drank, I finally became willing to do the steps. Willing to go to any lengths at the start kind of grew on me. And I stayed sober a lot early on fear in meetings, but sooner or later, relief wasn't recovery. And I had to learn that kind of had an educational variety. But very early on, yes, it was the fellowship that I craved.
Well, what was the first thing in AA? You made a list of a bunch of steps that you were determined not to do, and things in AA was asking you to do that you're determined not to do. What was the first thing? What is something that you did that AA asked you to do, kind of against your will? I don't believe in this. And then getting on the other side of it, saw the benefit of it.
Well, that would probably be asking for a sponsor. That was tough. Back then, this guy, I really admired him, and finally asked him, and he said, yes, but you have to go to this business meeting. And so I went to this business meeting, and he nominated me as treasurer. So 10 months later, so within a week of almost drinking at Thanksgiving, we went to a family's house, and they pre-poured wine at everybody's place setting. And I wasn't going to eat the god-awful green bean casserole, and I wasn't going to do this or that, but I didn't want to insult the host by not drinking the wine.
Oh,
and what stayed sober was my brother, who got sober ahead of me, was sitting there, got me to the point where I realized that if he wasn't there, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I couldn't rely on the human power. So I tested the water on spiritual power. So within a week of almost drinking, I had a sponsor and I had a service position, and I was off and running. Another 2 months later, did the steps. And
it sounds like that the idea of God for you was an experiment.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going to go to a meeting in a church.
And a lot of meetings are in churches, right?
That knocks out about 90% of the meeting.
Yeah, I went to one in a strip mall, but it was in a church, and I realized it after the fact. God and I have had a start there. I guess there's a series, Star Trek, where Spock went on to a planet and got in trouble, and these monsters and the space shuttle, and he was stranded. And he barely escaped the planet by the skin of his teeth and got up to space again where there was no Enterprise. And he jettisoned the fuel and ignited it and made a flare, and Kirk saw it, and Kirk went and got him. Anyway, he asked Spock, you sacrificed 20 minutes of life for 15 seconds of life, or 2 minutes or whatever. And he goes, that's not a logical act. And Spock told Kirk, well, I deemed it was time for an irrational act. And this is kind of my story into AA. I deemed it was time. All right, I'll give this one shot at spirituality.
Mark, I just had a little nerdgasm here. I got chills. I'm seriously a Trekkie. Yes, an irrational act.
There was a time, too, when I decided in Colorado, I four-wheeled up to this place I knew about and then hiked on this little knoll, and I lit a huge bonfire and demanded that God get down here and show himself to me. And I would have got put in a straitjacket, kind of a nervous breakdown. And anyway, God didn't, but the fire burnt down, and I was out of guns and bullets and everything else. And I was looking at the stars and the planets, and I realized that I didn't make it. Somebody bigger than you. And so at least that was the first half of the second step. I finally admitted there was a power greater than myself.
Mark, you've been sober for a while now.
Yes.
What does your sobriety look like today?
Well, I've been very fortunate. I was able to retire at 56. And we moved from Colorado to Casa Grande. And work took up a lot of time. How do I fill the void? And it's of service. And there's 2 treatment centers down here. So I spend a lot of time there. There's people that come into the meetings. I got involved in district a great deal, and I became DCM. And then I'm still involved in the area. I was talking earlier about meeting list coordinator for the state, the assistant. So that takes up a lot of time. And then I drive Mondays for the food bank. And then I got on a human relations board for the city. AA was kind of a proving ground. I went to these business meetings and, but, then I carried that over to work. And all of a sudden I was on the safety committee, then I was on the process improvement committee, and then I was on the negotiating committee for the contract. And I regret it sometimes, but I'm on the HOA board.
Me too.
It's AA has given me the tools.
The tools.
Yeah.
They talked about step 8 and the 12 by 12 about these defective relationships. And I'm able to have some healthy relationships with people.
Yeah.
And so
when AA permeates our lives, it really shows up everywhere in them.
yes,
We learn how to behave in groups of people.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a story in a previous Grapevine about our travels, and the wife and I, we had, even while working, we're able to travel like 3 weeks a year with this truck and trailer and pulled it all over and been to pretty much, I said every meeting, but I might be wrong by one, west of the Mississippi. We've been
wow.
in every state. So now we've done some traveling and stuff, 9 meetings in foreign countries. And in a couple of days from now, I'm going to Peru. They got an English speaking meeting there. So I wrote an email to this guy. Hey, do you still got your meeting going? He responded, yes. And I go, well, I'll take you to dinner. A few days from now, 4 days from now, I'm going to meet a friend.
Yes.
Friends
Peru. We haven't met yet, right?
All over the world.
Yes.
Indeed.
And, and I've got some AA stickers, the bat symbols, and I'm going to bring them some of those.
Well, Mark, this is great. Stick around and join us as we listen to some questions from a listener. It's time for the Ask It Basket.
What's that?
That's the name Bill W. gave the basket that was passed around for questions. We want your questions for our guests.
General recovery questions, newcomer questions, AA history.
Got a question for the Ask It Basket? Go to aagrapevine.org and click on podcast.
And now let's dip into the basket.
Rebecca B. wrote in a while back asking us to discuss confusing sayings in AA. Here are 2 of them for today.
Rebecca writes, the think, think, think sign, LOL. My sponsor and many old-timers told me it's not meant for me and I need to stop thinking. And some places have the sign upside down on the walls, meaning the same thing?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I think
yes.
that's what that means when you see this think, think, think upside down.
Well, I think that maybe means, turn your thinking on its end.
That's good, Sam.
What do you think, Mark? I bet you've seen these signs over the years.
Yes, I think think to think the drink through its conclusion.
Yeah.
It's an immediate ego talks loudest, the ego talks first, and here's a drink here. And the thing is, drinking well fixed my problem for a few minutes, but I need to think that drink through.
I like the idea of when I first got sober, first thought, wrong thought. And
I like that.
So whatever I'm thinking, I probably need to do the opposite when I first got sober. But then as I have been sober after a while, we learn how to handle situations that used to baffle us.
We get rewired.
Yeah. Seinfeld had an episode, Opposite Day, where George realized everything he did in life was wrong. So he did the opposite of his natural inclination.
And life got really good. Don, I remember when Blair, our mutual friend, was sponsoring me, he talked to me about those signs, and he informed me that there was an order that they go on the wall, and that think, think, think was supposed to be upside down. The order is live easy, but think first. The first word from each sign. Here's another one of Rebecca's questions. In quotes, relapse is a part of recovery, end quote. I hear many people get upset about this one, which I understand, especially for anyone who is new and has never relapsed. I heard my sponsor share in a meeting about relapse that it doesn't have to be part of your experience, but if you stay sober long enough, you will see and witness others' relapses. And some may even die. That hits me really hard, and so I try to be gentle and kind to anyone who comes back after a relapse. And when I sponsor, I do my best to be patient and kind, but with healthy boundaries and truth. Yeah, that's a tough one. And we talked about relapse and recovery several episodes ago, where I made the mistake of an absolute statement. For a lot of people, relapse is a part of recovery, not for everyone. A lot of people before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, tried to quit and found they could not, and relapsed and relapsed and relapsed, and did not relapse again once they got in the rooms. And there's a lot of us who have come to the rooms, myself included, that found I couldn't stay stopped as soon as I got in the rooms and relapsed and relapsed and relapsed. But what she's talking about here, especially the compassion with which we address people who are coming back from a relapse or people who are in a relapse. It is not my job to chastise anyone, to chase them out of the rooms, to chase them away, to make them feel less than. We do not shoot our wounded. It's my job to welcome them as many times as it takes, and hopefully they get it. What do y'all think about what Rebecca's asking here?
Mark?
Yeah, I have the saying that relapse is the absence of recovery. So there's something, this person may or may not have missed. And I'm hard to judge. I've been sober since the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think that's also important to let people know, because sometimes at relapse meetings, somebody doesn't feel they're a real alcoholic until they've gone through 3 or 4 times into AA. So it's important for people to know that they'll never have to drink again. And as I said earlier, I was at a place where I was staying sober on meetings and fear. There's a difference between going to meetings and being at a meeting. There's a difference between relief and recovery. There's a difference between working the steps and living the steps. And there's a difference between my program and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so a lot of these things have to do with relapse, I believe. My program isn't working, my program didn't work. And so why don't you try the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in a gentle way? Yes, you don't want to shoot the wounded or chastise or anything, but let's, start anew. Margaret Thatcher once wrote, sometimes you have to fight the battle more than once to win the war. And that's true for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be everybody's story.
Perfect.
Yeah. I wonder if relapse as part of recovery is not actually coming from a place of compassion to say, if you relapse, don't beat yourself up. Mm-hmm. It's part of recovery. This is what we need to do. I like what an old timer here in Greensboro always gave out the chips for the start over chip. He would say, there are no failures here. The only failures are those who don't make it back to AA.
I hear you, Stick.
Yeah. I love that, is don't beat yourself up. Yes, it is a failure, but I had to learn that there's nothing I can do. Complete surrender. I can't take one drink. It's not going to work. And it is that failure where the willingness comes to completely surrender to AA. I also came to AA and had fought that battle for so many years. I never drank again. But many people do. And it's just when is the point? It doesn't matter. When is the point that I'm ready to give up and get sober somebody else's way? And the program that we have in AA is one way that absolutely works.
Relapse as a part of recovery may be the wrong statement. Relapse is a part of my recovery. It's not a part of recovery in general. There's no denying that relapse happened and it is a part of my recovery. So my acceptance of that and moving on is a very important thing rather than beating myself up. So it's not a blanket statement to say that relapse is a part of everyone's recovery, but relapse is a part of some of our recovery.
Our founder, Dr. Bob, had a relapse. So
there you go.
That's right. Rebecca, thanks for writing in.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And we'll get to your other questions too.
And Mark, this has been a pleasure.
Indeed. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. It's nice to join in, and I definitely will get the new Grapevine app.
All right.
Fantastic.
Hey, Don, what are you playing with on your phone? We're supposed to be recording a podcast here.
Oh, sorry, Sam. Look, I was just checking my spiritual fitness in the new Grapevine app.
Oh, the daily spiritual maintenance checklist? Well, are you fit?
Yep, says so here. And look, there's a daily quote and a sobriety calculator.
And you can read the latest issue and all of the past issues all the way back to 1944.
And you can have the app read the magazine to you out loud as a playlist. It's the monthly magazine in print and audio.
Right in your pocket. The Grapevine and Lavinia apps are now available for both iOS and Android phones. To get yours, go to the App Store on your phone.
Sam, can you get that? It's the listener feedback phone.
212-870-3418. Yeah, hang on, I'll get it. Hello?
Hi there, my name is Brad from Elon, North Carolina. I've been sober for just over 10 years, about 10 and a half years. Got sober in Huntsville, Alabama after breaking out in handcuffs. However, the story that I wanted to tell is of the young man who will likely become my stepson very soon. You can read into that whatever you would like. And I was telling him whenever I was drinking, I remember one time chugging
rum,
basically just opening the bottle and drinking it. And he was thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, I can't imagine how much that would have burned. And I said, it's kind of like, almost drinking ethanol racing fuel. He said, oh, wait a minute. You're not an alcoholic. You're a race car. I haven't introduced myself as that in a meeting yet. Anyway, guys, my name is Brad. I teach public information for the Federal Emergency Management Agency as a contract instructor. My passion is helping people, and that's one of the reasons why AA has meant so much to me in my 10 years of recovery. You guys have experienced it being the counselor on the spot. You just never know when what you say is exactly what that person walked in for. And usually they come away thinking, well, my higher power really knows what they're doing. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thanks, race car. I often have to counsel Sam to talk him down. I'm just, on the spot.
Brad, that is what I love that. And I so relate to that being of service to people. Sometimes it's just a matter of being that person that listens, that might have something to share with them, but sometimes it's just about the listening too.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
This is Mac, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 12/23/70 is my sobriety date. I was just listening to the podcast, one about the convention. That's absolutely wonderful. I love that segment. I've loved all the segments. I've played them all from the very beginning. And thanks very much. God bless you both, and keep up the good work. I loved it.
Thanks, Mac. I'm glad you enjoyed that convention. Well, we want to do something different. We rotate all the different types of episodes that we do, and we really like to have a variety of all types of shows.
Indeed, Mac, thank you so much for calling in. And yeah, we have a lot of fun with all the different types of shows we do, but getting to meet people at these conventions and chat with so many different people is really a highlight.
It is, Sam. And the other thing is, it's very cool to be at a convention with something to do.
Oh, gosh, yeah, absolutely. Because, I'm not good at just being an attendee at these things. I got to have something to do. Which is why always volunteer at these things if at all possible. Thanks for calling in.
I'm at the very wit's end. Cuckoo. And now an historic barleycorn from April 1946.
A man walks down the street and bumps into a light pole.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Then he collided with a fire hydrant.
Oh, sorry.
He walked on, bumped into another light pole.
Oh, beg pardon? I'm sorry.
Defeated, he sat down on the curb.
I guess I better wait till the crowd thins out. It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. Podcast info, including how to call in, is at aagrapevine.org/podcast. Find AA Grapevine on Instagram and the AA Grapevine channel on YouTube. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org. If you want to know more about AA, Google Alcoholics Anonymous and your city or visit aa.org.